Good day, America, and welcome to the show. I'm not sure if my mic is working. I usually bounce this off of my co-host, but he's absent, and but the show must go on. If I can get comfortable here, move this over. Jeez, I moved this to a different area, and now it rotates when I'm moving it, which is not nice. I don't like that. I have to change that back. I got to get a better arm. I don't like this no more. Doesn't go up quite the way that I want it to. 'Cause it was okay when it was on this side. But when I moved it on this side, I started having problems getting it to adjust appropriately. But that's okay. I'll figure it out eventually. Anywho, welcome to the show. And tonight, I want to start more traditional, more classic than I have been in a while. No stories, no scripts. I haven't prepared anything. I haven't prepared scripts in a long time because typically me and my co-host will gather some news stories and we'll bounce some information off of each other and allow things to flow naturally. But so I haven't really prepared scripts in a long time, but I am going to start doing that again. I got a lot of things that I want to start doing that I'm going to start doing at the start of next year. But I want to start with a look at our Constitution. You know, we've talked about the Constitution many times uh, on this show. I talk about the Constitution quite a lot. But what I think is most important is how the Constitution is under attack by not only the Democrats, but also the Republicans. The entire government cabal. You know, I pointed out that in Article 1 of the Constitution, in Section 8, it outlines the procedures that Congress is supposed to take care of. And what we see at the southern border, and I've talked about this before. I'm not sure if I talked about it on this show per se, but I know I've talked about it before. I wrote a letter to Congress about it actually. But when we take a look at what this Congress, this government is doing with our southern border, I want to go over this part of the Constitution. It says that I want to pursue it, Section 8, that the Congress shall have the power to do these things. And one of those things, as outlined here, is the power to call forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. What we have at our border, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing more than an invasion. We have seized in more than enough fentanyl. And see, Rhett doesn't like my thoughts on the drug abuse situation in the country. He thinks I'm far too harsh. I say that the people who are willing to throw their lives away doing drugs, for lack of a better word, screw them. Rhett says that I'm far too harsh, that I should be more concerned about what drives people to do these things. And I'm like, I don't. Everyone knows this. I don't care much for excuses. I don't care much for finding the root of what somebody considers to be why they do something, because it's just an excuse that they can cop out to blame for their habit. All I care is that they admit that they have a problem and that they're willing to fix it and solve it. But we have seized enough of these fentanyl pills, of these drugs that have crossed the border to not only kill everybody within the United States, but to likely kill everybody on the face of the planet. And our government has done nothing about it. Never mind the fact that the government is completely to blame for much of, if not all of, the overwhelming dependency upon drugs and other substances in the first place. It introduced them into the streets. They also have practically forced it onto the American public via the lobbyists, which are these big pharmaceutical companies and doctors that want to be able to prescribe more drugs so they can get more money. For example, I have always had a huge issue and concern with children being medicated on Adderall and other things to treat ADD and all that other crap that they have, in my opinion, made up disorders just to find a reason to prescribe a kid a placebo drug, which really doesn't have the effects that they are intended to do. But what it does do is it starts a trend. It starts a unhealthy habit that any of their problems can be solved by being heavily medicated on some form of pharmaceutical device, be it a pill, a syrup, an injection, anything of the sort. They find that it is easier to medicate themselves than it is to right what they have wronged in their life, move past what they have had wrong being done unto them, or simply uh, be more responsible for the decisions that they make. And our government, they have done absolutely nothing. And you see, I'm not an advocate for the legalization of drugs, any kind. I don't care much for marijuana usage. I don't care for tobacco usage, even though I do smoke a cigar from time to time. I'm not too big on alcohol, even though I do drink from time to time. But you will never catch me drinking a beer. That's one thing you'll never see. But I have very little taste or desire to utilize any substances. And I think that it is very harmful and damaging to our country, to our young people particularly, for our generations of government to be encouraging more prolific drug use. I've I've never thought that it was the best thing for us to do. I've never thought that it was something that we should have looked forward to as a path. But many people want that to be a thing. And under the Constitution, it's a very tricky topic. And I'll tell you why. Because under the Constitution, the government has the power to make the rules of government and regulation of the land and of the naval forces. But one of their main duties that they have to be able to do is to protect our our lives. And this is something that they have failed to be able to do. But it gets very, very complicated because in the same issue, people should be free to be able to do whatever they want. I agree with that, regardless of whether or not I believe in what they're doing. But there are certain rules and procedures and methods that need to be taken into consideration. Now, this is where the Congress has the power when it comes to these particular issues. They have the power to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the laws of the nation, which means that Congress can change the laws as it relates to how we address these particular issues when it comes to these crimes of drug usage and other things. Let me see here. Uh, all right. Well, let's see. Okay. Now that was my co-host, but what that means is that Congress, they have the ability to create solutions for these issues. The problem that comes into effect is that they already created solutions to these issues years ago. They just have not enacted any of them. And the reason being is because they're trying to extend the Constitution to people who the Constitution does not apply to. Let this be understood. The rights and freedoms that American citizens possess are in no ways applicable to those that enter into this country illegally. The Bill of Rights does not apply to illegal aliens. The Constitution does not apply to illegal aliens. The only thing that applies to illegal aliens are the rules and regulations that have been set forth by the Congress as it relates to them. And because they refuse to do their job, which is to ensure our protection and to stop these insurrections and invasions of our country, they continue to toy the line and extend rights to the illegals. For example, in California, illegal aliens can all but vote in federal elections. That's no exaggeration. They can vote in the school boards. They can vote in statewide elections in many areas. They have uh, driver's licenses, which allow them to get past many of the voting laws. But, and this is why I find the hypocrisy in that, the illegal aliens are able to receive all of this stuff as it relates to driver's licenses and whatnot. And bear in mind that it's almost impossible for us to find these illegal aliens, or at least that's what they want us to believe. Nice cocktail. But that's what they want us to believe. But when it comes time for us to be able to give these people an endless amount of benefits, thousands upon thousands of dollars per individual, tens of thousands of dollars, should I say. I think the estimated total was somewhere around $63,000 a day for these people. Yet, one of the reasons why the Democrat Party, as well as some Republicans, and we know that this is as well as some Republicans because much of the state legislatures, the state electors have changed many of their rules to follow the advice of the Democrats, which they say it's impossible for people of my complexion to get an ID, to be able to find methods in which they can get voter identification. And they say, well, there's people who don't have birth certificates or social security cards, but it doesn't stop them from being able to provide the same form of identification to illegal aliens who are crossing the border illegally with no social security card or birth certificate of any kind, but yet they're able to get the same benefits, if not more, in many cases, much more than the average American poor. I won't say average American, but they do receive many more benefits than the average American does. I will say that. But more than the poor average American. But yet we're supposed to just believe that it's impossible for people of my skin tone to get identification properly in some of these states, and that it's the problem of the Republicans, it's a problem of the racists, it's a problem of all of those types of things. But never once do people of my skin tone stop and think and wonder, hmm, I can't get an ID, even though you can. I can't get an ID for free. But that guy that just jumped the border who has no social security card or birth certificate, which you need to get an ID in many states, he just got one from California state government. Why can't I? I'll bring this up because we were talking about the big issue of Kanye or Ye or whatever the fuck he wants to call himself nowadays. I could care less. I don't really care. Now I've never been a big Kanye West fan. To begin with, I don't dislike Kanye West. I just find him far too unorthodox and unintelligent. Though he does have his moments when he says things that are true. And in many of the things that he said in recent times have been true to a degree. Was Hitler a great man? Yes. If and only if you're looking at the the positives that we got out of his cruel experimentation. Unfortunately, he cruelly experimented and subjected upon the Jews several different variations of drugs that we have today, like penicillin, um, that we now are able to use for sustainability. So, in that regard, was he a good man? Was he a great man? Sure. If you discount everything else, then Kanye wasn't wrong. But we all know that penicillin versus 60 million dead people, a scouring of an entire ethnicity of people. I can't call them a race. People are also like, oh, it's racist, blah, blah, blah. I can't call them a race because the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of the people who are claiming to be Jewish aren't even real Jews. I'm sure they may have some Jewish blood in them. We all have Jewish blood in us if you really want to go down that rabbit hole. Uh, but Jewish, being a Jew is not an ethnicity. It's a religion. The Jewish people's ethnicity, the true Jewish people's ethnicity, is Hebrew. And the Hebrew people do not look like Jerry Springer. That I can tell you. Now, ancestry has a lot to fall into all of those things. Okay, that's fine. But what Kanye West says about the Jewish people, this is coming from a person who's a Christian. A Kanye is supposed to be a Christian. And for Kanye to attack God's chosen people in that way in which he does is antithetical to anything that a Christian follower of God would ever do. But then, recently I've stopped watching Officer Tatum completely. I'll see some of his stuff. I gotta remember to unsubscribe to him because he's gone down a rabbit hole that's far too extreme. These here are the facts. We are a Christian country in name and a name only. Because our First Amendment gives us the right to freely choose and express whatever religion that we want to. Now, I'm a Christian person. I believe that America ought to be a Christian country, that God should be first in everything, and that no matter what we do, it should always be, as I've said many times about myself, that we are children of God first, Americans second, and whatever the fuck else last. But the fact is, that's not how our country works. I've had far enough of the zealotry of so called Christians that I will now call fake Christians. Why am I calling them fake Christians? Because you can't call yourself a Christian and try to force your Christianity on other people. It doesn't work that way. You can do everything in your power to try to ensure that other people receive Christ into their hearts, into their minds, and be renewed and reborn. That is a given. That is something that we ought to desire to do. Let's see what the hell's going on here. Hate when things like that happen. I forgot to put it on vibrate. But to try to force your religion on somebody else, well, that goes against the entire principle of coming to Christ. He said that he wants you to come to us as a little child, free and curious, ready to receive and trust in the Lord. Come to us as you are. He didn't say be compelled, be propelled, or be forced into submission by those people who would do it in my name. As a matter of fact, he had quite a disagreeable opinion of those who are running around championing and parading in his name, all for the sake of virtue. The Pharisees, need I remind you, and I don't intend to preach, but I find it most annoying when so called Christians are willing to cast stones and pass judgment on other people when they themselves have just as many skeletons in the closet, if not more, than the people that they're casting stones at. Now, that's not of Christ. Some people accuse me of being a shrewd man. And some people say that I'm too tough. Some people say that I'm too kind, believe it or not, though it's true. The fact of the matter is, to be a good Christian in America, which is a country founded upon the principles of freedom, you have to understand how to separate the ideas from the ideas of freedom from sin. They're two different things completely. People are free under Christ as well as free under our Constitution to sin or not to sin, should they want to or not. Under Christ, you are free to do whatever it is that you want to do. But there are consequences for what you might choose to do. For example, if you murder somebody, whether it be justified or not, there are consequences for that action. You don't know what the consequence is. It could be good, it could be bad, but you don't know because you don't have the book that chronicles all of your misdeeds from your good deeds. So you don't know. You could be gay. You could be straight. You could be sleeping together, unwed. Now, in many religions, this isn't a sin. And in many respects, in Christianity, it's not. But because of the teachings of Paul, Solomon, of modern day preachers who've interpreted the Bible in different ways, and because of the thoughts of others, it is, despite the fact that nowhere in the Bible does it say that it is. However, it does say that to commit adultery, which you can only do, at least according to the dictionary definition, though I'm sure some person dealing with semantics will probably find a way to interpret it a different way. But adultery can only happen between a married couple. It is true that the wickedness that happens in your thoughts can cause you sin. It's true that you sin every breath that you take because there are the possibilities that you are either doing something that is untactful, thinking something that is unholy, or simply not using the free time to dedicate it to the Lord, which in many extreme practices of our religion is a sin. I used to take the idea of sin very, very, very seriously. I still do, which is why I try not to sin, but we're human. We're going to until the day that we die. As a matter of fact, we may be sinning when we die. As a matter of fact, there's no may. We will be sinning when we die. But what changed my mind, what changed my thoughts on focusing on all of the sin in the world was I used to have a little red book. Well, I won't say little red book. It was thinner than this, about half. I think it had 260 pages. About 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 that many right here. And it was taller than this, but not by much. And on page 33 through 36 was nothing but a list of sins. And as I read over that, I realized that everything in there was everything. It was a sin to work too much. It was a sin to work too little. It was a sin to think too much. It was a sin to think too little. It was a sin to pray too little. It was a sin not to pray too much. It was a sin to pray for selfish things. It was a sin to pray for unselfish things. It was a sin to do anything. Basically, anything that you could think of. According to the writer of this book of prayers, which I love that book. It was a really, really good book. I don't know where it's at. I got to figure out where, you know what? I think I know where it's at. I think I gave it to my grandmother. But in that book, I realized that the more I focus on trying not to sin, the more I found that everything that I did that wasn't 100% in devotion to God was a sin. And I can honestly say that in all of my life, never once has any one thing that I have ever done, even if I've done it for the intended purpose of being for the Lord, has been 100% for Him alone. And how can I say that? Well, When I write these pieces that the Lord inspires me to write, I don't write them just because of the Lord. Yes, I do want to exalt and edify Him, but what's the purpose of writing them if I have no intended audience, if I have nobody that I want to provide it to? So I can never 100% say that it's written for the Lord if it's actually written for people to read or listen to. And according to this book of sins, because it wasn't 100% on God, it's a sin. I say all of this, and I'm talking about this now, and I know I've swapped topics from the border and over to this, but I say all of this now because I am seeing a disturbing trend with conservatives and this religious zealotry within our country that honestly staggers me how idiotic that they can be, how judgmental that they are, how often they are throwing stones at people and forgetting what it means to be a true born Christian. They are forgetting their place. Their place is to guide. Their place is to draw unto Christ. Their place is not to cast judgment onto anyone. And you will never be able to bring anyone to Christ by doing such. And the conservatives, what they have done, and the reason why conservatives and Republicans are failing so miserably, is because they are standing and preaching from the pulpit when they themselves have mountains of stones over their head, and they are trying to throw the pebbles at their feet at others. It doesn't work that way. I want to win just as much as any of you, but we can't win by pretending to be the moral superior to others, because we aren't. There's no one moral superior figure alive on this planet today, excluding yours truly. It's true. It's true. With that aside, you have many conservatives that are outraged by gay marriage. I'm like, sure, I don't like it either. But it's not for us to decide. Marriage has nothing to do with religion in the first place. It existed before religion. It will exist after religion is gone. In many respects, the thing that is limiting marriage the most isn't religion, it's the government. The reason why you have to go through so many hoops and hurdles and bills to even make gay marriage an issue is because the government made it where gay people can't behoove any of their belongings to their partners or spouses because they aren't considered blood relatives, even if they died and left a will and they're supposed to go to their intended spouse or partner. According to the government, you can't make that decision. It has to go to next of kin, regardless of what you say. And so, when you die, whether or not you want to give that property or that money or life insurance policy or whatever, you want to leave the house behind, you can't do it because Uncle Sam says that you can't. And so, you're causing people turmoil, unable to leave anything behind to their loved ones, to ones that they care for. If I died today and I wanted to leave everything that I had to an orphanage, I wouldn't be able to do that either. because the government has told me that I've got to give everything that I have to my next of kin, and my next of kin would be my siblings, my mother, my father. And once all of my family have finished picking my carcass clean, then whatever is left over can be sent to the orphanage. That's the way Uncle Sam has worked. That's the way the government has worked. That's the way Congress wrote the law. So this isn't a matter of trying to force gay marriage upon the church, which, if that ever came to be, I guarantee you that it will be overruled by the Supreme Court instantly. But rather, it is forcing all states to protect marriage because not all states have to abide by the same standard. Where if a gay person is married in California and moves to Alabama or Mississippi or Georgia or wherever, and they die, they can't leave their belongings to their spouse because their marriage is not recognized, and so therefore they are not next of kin. And that's what the matter comes down to. Do I care? Not really. I don't. Gay issues have never been something that I cared for or was particularly concerned about. They could have more or less rights than they have right now, and it wouldn't bother me very much at all, except for when it started to encroach upon the freedoms of other people. The issue is clear that it's about the Constitution and what their freedoms are. And conservatives, particularly these fake Christian zealots that champion Christ and run around here pretending to be holier than thou, pretending to know what they don't know, pretending to understand things more clearer than the rest of us do when they themselves are babes in Christ and aren't following Christ in any way, shape, or form, are causing us a lot of problems. Now, I'm not a Republican and I'm not a conservative, though I lean conservatively and I vote Republican because there's nobody else. The Constitution Party, it's a party that I'm affiliated with, but they have no candidates. So I vote for the party that is closest to honoring the Constitution. And it just so happens that that's the Republican Party at the moment. Though the way the conservatives and these extreme zealots within the party are acting, they're going against the Constitution, which makes it tougher for a person like me to vote for Republicans. However, I want to win, the same as you. So we have to figure it out. We have to get things together. Congress has failed their jobs, as I said earlier at the beginning of all of this. Congress has failed their task. They failed in their duty at protecting us, at allowing us to live in prominent security, being able to walk outside your home without the fear of death, being able to pick up a dollar bill without the fear of death. I was watching the news the other day. A police officer picks up a dollar laced with fentanyl. The wind blows it, the dust gets in her eyes, and she falls into a coma. Still battling for our life now. Some people get it put in their drinks. Some people were passing it out to children for Halloween, disguised as candy. And Congress allows this to happen. When you have millions that have crossed into our border illegally that we know of, you know how much more there are that we don't. We don't know where they are. We don't know what their motive is. We don't know what their intention is. But we do know that they have brought death and war upon us. And Congress has failed in their duty to protect against that. So, what I'm saying here is, as I get ready to wrap this up, we have a duty in the next 2 years to right the wrongs of Congress. We have a task at hand, and we're nearly there. But we need a little bit more from all of you, from all of us. We are the people that provide for this country. And if we can just get a few more states to sign up and approve a convention, well, then we will be able to finally amend the wrongs of Congress. We'll be able to take care of ourselves once again. It is important that we do this, that we take the next 2 years to think about where we want our future to be. Because let me tell you something. Right now, this is the tip of hell. A lot of good things have been happening to me. But as I begin to reflect on what those good things mean, I'm beginning to see that the evil of this world, of this generation, is just now starting to begin. Do you understand how devastatingly difficult it's going to be for a generation that's coming up that will not be able to afford anything? I went to the store not too long ago, about 2, 3 hours ago. I got one bag, some roach spray. I was going to get some foggers, but they rose the price from $6.50 to $10 for four of them. So I said I'll just get some roach spray. Got some pasta sauce. Was going to get the ground meat, but they wanted $20 for 2 pounds of ground meat. I said no. Then I got some can of diced tomatoes. It was what else did I get? Got some more some little not rat roach traps. You're supposed to put them there and put the poison in there, and the roach is supposed to go in there and die. Because this apartment is run down. Well, it's not run down, but I don't think they've ever sent an exterminator to this apartment, so I got to do it myself. And I bought a torch for my candles. It was a cigar torch. Well, it's a lighter, but it's a torch. It blows out like a torch, which is good for cigars. But I've got it for my candles. And I think that's all I got. Yeah, and one of those. It's not $1 anymore. It's $1.50 now to get one of those little fast bite burgers that you put in the microwave for 90 seconds. And that cost me $34 for that small bag. And as I was doing some price shopping, looking to buy some property, to buy some homes, and I'm looking and I'm like, the rates that the Fed have been raising the rates up, it's going to make it almost impossible for somebody like me to be able to purchase a home for less than, I don't know, maybe $50,000 out of pocket up front. You used to be able to go get a home for less than 10. It's not possible anymore. The hell that is about to be produced because of what this government and these people have done to our economy, to our systems, it's going to be tough. And so, because of those things, if you are willing, or maybe you're just too old to care, you won't be around much longer anyway, to live in these situations and continue voting the same way that you are. But if you have real concerns about the future, about how you're going to survive and be able to make it, it's time for you to start thinking on your own 2 feet. This is not an endorsement to vote for Republicans. This is an endorsement for you to vote with your brain. This is an endorsement for you to vote for something that actually matters, and that's what's happening to your pocket. As what you vote for affects me. What I vote for affects you. And the votes that you people have cast have left people like me who are we make enough money to be well off. But because of the price of the market, we can't afford to get anything. You know, people are like, well, you should go get on some type of assistance. I make too much money for that. But every time I get paid, I loathe to even buy food. I can't go to the store and get 20 items and keep $200 in my pocket. And it costs $200 to just to get 20 items of food. It costs almost $10 to get eggs. Uh, I never did know how expensive eggs were. I grew up on raising chickens, so didn't know how expensive eggs were. But this is outrageous. Uh, I don't know if you guys know anything about this, but I go to the store and I go get those little granola bars, and I love granola bars. But I used to go to the store. It's got like banana oat and honey oat and the chocolate chip, and they were 33 cents when I first started buying them several years ago. Get three of them for $1. I went to the store and bought some, and they're smaller than they used to be, but they cost 82 cents for one now. It's the same, and it's smaller than it used to be. It doesn't taste as good as it used to be either. But in order to buy three of them, it's almost what, $2.50. I think it was two. I think it was 2.42 that it cost to buy three of them. So it was like 84 cents after taxes for each bar. I was I was appalled. I'm like, even the stuff that I used to be able to buy for cheap, can't can't buy in my own. I like my Debbie cakes, but this box of little Debbie snacks used to cost 150. Then I remember watching it raise the price to 175. Well, now this, and bear in mind, look at the size of them, how small they are. This, this box is 375. It's impossible to continue to try to supply with the rates that things are right now. And that's the reason why I'm saying that when you go to the polls to vote, you have to bear in mind that this is not about a culture war, though you can make it that if you want to. What's important is how it affects your pocketbook. And let me tell you, The votes that you guys have casted have devastated my pocketbook. I can't keep any money in my pocket anymore because of what you guys have all voted for. But that's the end of this thing today. Uh, Tomorrow, I'll be doing a newscast. And next Saturday will be the last episode of the year. And we're not going to do a New Year's special because I want to take that weekend off. So next Saturday is the 24th. So the next time you see us, it's going to be January. I'm debating on doing it on the 14th, but I think I'll give us almost a month off. January 21st will be the next time that you see us after next week because we have to get back to the basics. We're going to start doing a whole bunch of other things. And I continue to ask for you guys' support. I'm going to start changing and molding this more towards my liking. I mean, it's all towards my liking now, but I'm going to start changing and molding things to benefit the Sundays. We're going to start doing news. So on Sundays, I'm going to start taking care of all of the newscasting and broadcasting for those types of things. So if you're interested in those, we're going to do those Sundays at prime time, and Sunday mornings we're going to do our Sunday show again. It's just going to be me, but it's going to be great. We'll have guests on if we can get some guests to come on and share in the goodness of the Lord with me on that on these Sundays, and we'll have a good time. But with that, I want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. I know it's a little more boring than our most recent episodes that we've done on the weekends. But please, if you like our content, like, share, download our content on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Find us everywhere now. The Story of America with Payson Williams, Story of America PW. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker Audio, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts. We're everywhere. We're just spreading all over the place, kind of like horse manure. Follow us on YouTube. Share our Facebook page. Uh, Subscribe to us on YouTube. Um, I think we're on Twitter. Get us on Truth Social. I still have to do Instagram. We're on some other stuff too, but whatever you can find, it's the Story of America, Pacer Williams, Story of America, PW. And I'm going to see you guys next weekend. Well, actually, no, I'm going to see you guys tomorrow for our news, and then next weekend for our end of the year special.